All right, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing a Walking Dead and Game of Thrones video for today. This one will be a crossover video. So now that Game of Thrones is finally ending, we just have a few episodes left, and The Walking Dead has been completely reinvented. Let's compare, in the end, The Walking Dead versus Game of Thrones. Alright, so I thought this one would be a lot of fun to go ahead and do with you guys, and I want to see your comments below so that we can kind of discuss and see how we're feeling at this point. So, it's pretty much coming down to the wire now. This will be the last comparison video that I ever do between these two series because, it's over. It's over, right? I mean, we have, 3 weeks basically left for Game of Thrones, and the series is in the bag. Game of Thrones is over forever. There will be spin-offs, there will be prequels probably in the future coming from HBO, but the original Game of Thrones series is history. It's done. So to compare these two, this is one that comes up a lot in the channel because, of course, we focus so much and so heavily on The Walking Dead and also Game of Thrones when Game of Thrones is on, because when Game of Thrones is on, it's like an event-type series. It comes on for its 6 weeks or whatever, 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 weeks, depending on the season. And, when it's on, it's what everybody's talking about. I mean, it's an amazing series. It's an event type of series. It's the same kind of quality, as I've said recently in my reviews for Game of Thrones episodes, as what you'd expect to see like in a movie. And, it's about as epic as you could ever see any series, to be, right? So in the end, that's basically how they kind of decided to end off Game of Thrones. Rather than keeping Game of Thrones going past the season 10 mark or past the season 9 mark, they decided that they would take their time with it. They would wrap it up. They would take an extra year or two, however long it took them to do these last couple seasons. And we would see 8 final seasons of Game of Thrones, and then the series would be over. And also that the episodes would be a shorter episode count in the last 2 seasons with kind of a reduced number of episode releases. But at the same time, what they did is they basically took out all the filler. They gave us just the good stuff, and they put kind of all their effort into just those set episodes to bring some incredible episodes of the series. So, in comparison to The Walking Dead still going strong. It is quite a bit ahead now, having finished its 9th year, and of course they're working on the 10th year, the 10th season of The Walking Dead now, so it's going to be in double digits soon. They've got, the movies series that's going to be coming out, so a trilogy of movies featuring Rick, which is going to continue his story. Of course there's a spinoff already, or companion series, Fear the Walking Dead, and then they're going to do another spinoff on top of that. So The Walking Dead has really expanded itself out of just the one, series into a more of a network kind of franchise type of series. So you have 2 different approaches here for 2 of the best series that have been on in the last decade. I would say, in my opinion, the 2 best series that have been on in the last decade for what I'm into and what I'm interested in. Between the both of them, you got 2 different approaches. HBO decided that they were going to do an epic series. They were going to finish it off soon. They weren't going to let it go on too long so the fans would get, bored, or they'd get burned out, or they'd get fatigued. They decided they would end it on a high note, and they've done that. They've got the highest ratings they've ever had this year in its last and final season, with, crazy, over 11 million, 10 million, these kind of U.S. viewership type of numbers for a subscription network, which is absolutely crazy. And it's also the most pirated series of all time, I believe, still. Just a lot of people watching it because it's a subscription service. A lot of people wanting to see it and using other means to do so. On the flip side, on the other side, The Walking Dead has decided that they're going to take an approach with AMC to continue on and give the fans even more of what they want. Give them the movies, give them another spin-off series, give them 32 weeks a year of new episodes, even though they're not all extended and they're not all hour without commercials like Game of Thrones is when it's on. You get kind of that extended release, and you get to see the characters go on kind of further in any way they can kind of make that work, rather than just killing them off. If they have to do movies to make it work, they're deciding to do that. If they have to bring them into another spin-off series to give them more time, they've decided to do that. So, ultimately, in the way kind of both have gone, if you want to oversimplify it down, I guess you could say quality versus quantity. It's up to the viewer and what they decide, but I tend to think that after the next 3 episodes of Game of Thrones are going to be done, people are really going to miss that series, and they're not going to have a whole lot to look forward to right away. We'll have to see how these prequels go. I've heard one of them is dead in the water already. We're going to have to see, when they get released, if they do get released within the next year or two. It might be a couple years, and we'll have to see, what kind of run those will have. Obviously not an easy series to make, but neither is The Walking Dead. But they've definitely set themselves up to be in the future very divergent from one another and completely different styles of shows, completely different, in the end, because the one is going to continue on forward for maybe another decade or several more years at the least, and the other is wrapping up very soon in an event, epic type of fashion. So personally for me, as with the comparison, I've always kind of said that I think, and based on that description, of course you're expecting to get better quality out of the one that's going to be ending sooner, out of the one that's going to be focusing kind of on delivering that great quality right up until its last episode, with making every minute count, maybe making every death count, and really, really going for it right before it ends, whereas the other one plans to go on for a lot longer. So both are, like I said, my two favorite series of the last decade. I tend to think if you're looking for something that's just going to be over soon, in terms of like the quality versus quantity discussion, I guess you go for kind of Game of Thrones with that kind of quality approach, in that you get to see it. It's finite. It's you can watch those 8 seasons through, and the story's going to be over. Whereas The Walking Dead is taking the other approach, which is going to be that there's going to be many more years of it. You're going to have many more characters. They're not always going to focus on the starting original characters. I do think it's kind of funny, though, that halfway through the series and these discussions, a lot of Game of Thrones fans said that they would, Game of Thrones, nobody is safe and they kill off anybody. The funny thing is that in The Walking Dead, as the years have kind of gone on, they've sort of killed off, I want to say, of the first season characters, The Walking Dead actually ended up killing off a lot more of those original season characters than Game of Thrones did, which is kind of funny because I used to be a feather in the cap of Game of Thrones fans, that they felt like, oh, nobody's safe and anything can happen to anybody. And The Walking Dead has kind of outed them, I think, in that way, even though, Game of Thrones fans will probably are raging right now listening to me say this because they're so, Game of Thrones fans are very elitist. They're more elitist, I'd say, than Walking Dead fans are. They tend to think that, their series is the greatest ever, and that's what it is. It's the best ever, and don't you dare compare Walking Dead, or how could you even compare, right? I can hear the troll comments right now. How could you even compare these two? For me, going forward, I mean, they're probably my two favorite series of all time. The Walking Dead, for me, still pulls ahead, and it's probably because of the characters, I think. Game of Thrones has some amazing characters. Tyrion's a lot of fun. Jon is amazing. And Daenerys is incredible, too. Cersei's a good bad guy, and the Night King was awesome in the end. Ramsay and some of the other villains they've had through the show, really great. Joffrey. The Walking Dead, for me, still kind of pulls it through, and it comes down to, those characters, right? Rick, Daryl, Michonne, a lot of the others we've seen throughout the series, Glenn, Maggie, and everybody. Though, for some reason, for me, emotionally, I was able to get more invested in those characters. So when we saw kind of, spoiler warning here, Rick's final episode, and we saw some of these last kind of moments this year in season 9, and the way things have kind of gone, I'm really happy with how they've been able to kind of sort out these unsortable situations, or find solutions to these problems that you wouldn't think they'd be able to solve, i.e. what happened with Rick. So I'm really happy with both series and the way both turned out. The Walking Dead will probably always be my favorite series of all time. I don't know if I'll ever care for characters as much as I have in The Walking Dead, and even in Game of Thrones, as much as I love some of the characters. Tyrion's really funny and everything, and Jon is great too. I still feel like they never quite developed the characters as much for me as AMC has in The Walking Dead, and that's why I think I have to pull ahead with The Walking Dead as my all-time favorite series. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Those are the most impactful moments, is when you truly care about the characters, you truly care about what's happening to them, and and it impacts you emotionally. That's really for me what has allowed The Walking Dead to kind of pull ahead in this discussion. And even though it's going to continue on, and I don't expect it to be the same kind of quality as The Long Night or Hard Home or some of these Battle of the Bastards, some of these incredible episodes that Game of Thrones has done, very high achievements. Episode like What Comes After, and some of the episodes The Walking Dead has done, season 7 premiere, Sanctuary, No Way Out, because you care so much for those characters, and you want to see them survive, and you want to see everything go well for them. For me, it's impacted me more as a viewer over the years. So that's kind of my final comparison between the two. My favorite, of course, series of all time, number one for me is still The Walking Dead. Game of Thrones has kind of come close, but again, it's because of the characters. Game of Thrones does not have a Rick for me. They don't have a character that sticks out as much for me as Rick. And I know that's different for other people. People could say the opposite and say that maybe Jon is the character they like even more than any character in The Walking Dead. And that's fine too. This is subjective. It's just my opinion on how I go between the two. So The Walking Dead will probably always be my favorite, but Game of Thrones gave it a good run for its money, and definitely have to view what Game of Thrones has done the last few years with some of these episodes as the highest quality television that maybe has ever been done. And not just compared to The Walking Dead, but compared to almost anything. Stuff that is movie level quality and good, like standout movie quality at that. Not just something you go to see and, okay, it's a movie, whatever, but, something that's memorable in terms of a theater type experience. So that's my comparison right now and how I'm feeling kind of in the end, since both series have kind of, one's reinvented itself entirely, so it's not even the same show really, and the other one actually is just fully not going to continue, is going to end. Let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments below, and if you like the video, please thumb it up below. You can share, you can favorite, and if you're new and you want to subscribe, bottom left to subscribe. That's it for this one. Hope I didn't piss off too many people in the comparison. I'll see you guys again soon. As always, it's Trev. Say peace. Later, guys. See you soon.